Chapter 3. The doctor ignored the warning about the coming storm. He insisted on going out to look at the site where Bob had been attacked. Despite the cold, Lizzie offered to join him. A grumpy Matt was told to keep an eye on both of them. "What is he doing?" shouted Matt above the howling wind as he watched the doctor. "I have no idea," said Lizzie. The doctor was poking around the barrels with what looked like a slim metal torch. The green light from its tip flickered across the snow. There was a high-pitched whine as he swept it back and forth. Snapping the light off, the doctor peered at a tiny reading on the side of the tube. He was still dressed in nothing warmer than his tweed jacket. Lizzie couldn't work out how he wasn't freezing to death. Even in her windproof anorak and fleece, Lizzie's teeth were chattering so hard that she could barely talk. "Have you found anything yet?" she called. The doctor looked over at her, brushing snow from his floppy fringe of hair. "Oh, yes. Come and see." Lizzie and Matt hurried over to where the doctor was crouched between the barrels. He had brushed away the loose snow to reveal a deep mark in the frozen ice beneath. "What does that look like to you?" he asked. It took Lizzie a few moments to make sense of the shape. Her eyes widened. Matt realized what it was at about the same time. "You've got to be kidding! It's a footprint!" gasped Lizzie. "A huge footprint!" "Which does tend to back up Mr. Clamp's claim that he was attacked by some kind of dinosaur." The doctor rose to his feet, peering at the line of footprints leading off into the worsening storm. "The question is, where did it come from and where is it now?" "I've got to tell Mr. Pelham," said Matt nervously. "And I've got to get some pictures." Lizzie fumbled under her parka, trying to extract her camera. "No!" Matt snatched the camera from her. "There is to be nothing on record about this until Mr. Pelham decides otherwise." With that, he turned and started to hurry back towards the base. "Now, just you wait a minute!" Lizzie hurried after him. The doctor tried to ignore them. Humans, they were always arguing about the least important things. He chewed his lip. They were in the middle of one of the most remote places on Earth. There was a storm bearing down on them. There was a monster on the loose. He grinned. Someone must have known I was coming. With one last glance at the dark sky, the doctor hurried towards the base. Somehow, he had to persuade Pelham to stop work, whilst he worked out exactly what had been disturbed. "A dinosaur? Rubbish!" Pelham snorted in disbelief. "This is just another attempt to stop me. You're as bad as those green activists from Wholewheel, worried about the penguins or the polar bears." Now, not polar bears," the doctor started to correct him. "You only find them at the North Pole, not the South. Penguins, on the other hand." As the two men argued, Lizzie started to edge her way back to the door. She checked to see that Matt wasn't watching her. He was too busy trying to keep his employer calm. Slipping out into the corridor, she started to make her way back towards the small office where Matt had put her gear. The base was quiet and gloomy. Most of the staff were in the canteen, waiting to see how bad the storm got. She smiled to herself. Her trick with the camera out on the ice had worked perfectly. Now, if anyone noticed that she was missing, they would assume that she had gone back outside to photograph the footprint. She found Matt's office easily. He had a big plaque on the door that said, "Mr. Pelham's personal assistant." She gave a snorting laugh. What an idiot! He hadn't even bothered locking the door. Her black briefcase and camera were sitting on the desk. She closed the door and then unlocked the clasps on the case with a small key. She checked the equipment inside. Happy that everything was untouched, she closed the case again. For a moment she hesitated. If she went through with what she had planned, then she was finished. No career, no future. Finished. Was what she was doing right? Then the newspaper on the desk caught her eye. The picture of Rick Pelham's grinning face leered out at her. She had grown up watching men like him destroy the planet. That was why she had joined the Wholewheel protest group in the first place. It was time to fight back. With a new certainty, Lizzie lifted the case down off the desk. With luck, she would be able to find what she was looking for and get back before anyone noticed that she was missing. She snatched up the camera and slung it over her shoulder. She had to keep up the act of being a determined photographer at all costs. Lizzie snuck out of the office and into the corridor, peering at the signs and posters that lined the walls. Which way to go? Every part of the base looked the same to her. She set off down a corridor at random, but just found herself in an empty room. The second corridor she tried seemed to end at a blank wall. It must be part of the base still not finished. Frustrated, Lizzie retraced her steps and tried another direction. There was a sudden, violent gust of wind, enough to rattle the walls of the base. The lights flickered and died. For a moment, there was total blackness. Then, with the hum of backup motors, dim red emergency lights slowly came on. "Great," muttered Lizzie. "Even the man who thinks that he has the solution to the global energy crisis has a power cut." She fumbled in her pocket and pulled out a small keyring with a torch on it. Praying that the batteries were still working, she flicked the switch. To her relief, the little light was bright and steady. She started to edge slowly along the corridor, feeling her way in the gloom. The bland refinery corridors now seemed sinister and dangerous in the eerie red light. The entire complex was bigger than she had thought, and Lizzie started to regret her decision to set off without finding out a bit more about the layout. She was suddenly aware of movement behind her. She turned just in time to see a dark shadow flash past the end of the corridor. Her heart leapt. If she had been spotted, she would have to bluff it out. "Hello?" she called out nervously. "Who's there?" She peered along the corridor where the figure had gone. Nothing. Realizing that she would soon be missed, she set off in the other direction. Before long, she came to a large doorway blocking her way. She shone her torch at a sign that read, "Danger! Power Room! Authorized personnel only." She grinned. Bingo! Setting down her briefcase, she pulled a scrap of paper from her pocket and tapped the numbers written there into the keypad. The heavy door swung open. She gave a sigh of relief. It had taken the promise of a lot of money to persuade Bob Clamp to text the security code to Wholewheel. Lizzie felt a pang of guilt as she recalled how badly injured he was. She hoped he would survive to spend that money. Checking that she was alone, she slipped inside the power room. It was dark, lit with the same eerie red emergency lights as the rest of the base. Machines lined the walls, and in the center of the floor sat the squat, ugly shape of the power cell. Lizzie hurried over to it, sliding the briefcase under the main body of the machine. With a pounding heart, she pulled a small plastic box from her pocket. It was about the size and shape of a small mobile phone. She pressed a button on the side. There was a muffled beep from the briefcase. Stuffing the device back into her pocket, Lizzie hurried back out of the power room. As she watched the heavy door close, Lizzie let out all her breath in a rush. It was done, for better or worse. Now she had to get back. She turned to retrace her steps. Something dark rushed at her from the shadows. Lizzie got a sudden glimpse of jet-black eyes and matted fur, and then everything went dark.